With a combination of the Fantastic Four reshoots just weeks before its release date on July 25th and the lackluster test screenings that took place just days ago and more looming on the horizon, all of that combined, we know that a lot of Marvel fans are very concerned over the upcoming Fantastic Four film, the fourth one in existence, by the way. You know, back in 2015, we had the one that failed miserably across the board. But when focusing on the MCU, alright, Marvel Studios has their one chance to make this movie right, and so far, well, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of confidence surrounding this film by Disney CEO Bob Iger and even Marvel boss Kevin Feige. Let's discuss. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, one thing for sure is that Pedro Pascal and his politics, they are only making matters worse for the Fantastic Four, but it's not just that. It's the fact that they are indeed shifting away from source material. Pedro confirmed this. We know that, of course, Joseph Quinn talked about this as well, about how they will be changing Johnny Storm to be far less than how he was in the comics, far less than how Chris Evans portrayed the character in 2005-2007. But this is where it gets even worse, because we know one thing for sure is that Marvel and Disney, they are doing something very similar with the Fantastic Four, much like what they are doing right now with Ironheart, what they did with Snow White, as well as what they did with the Acolyte series back in June of 2024. And, well, a lot of this has to do with the financial cutbacks and the financial collapse surrounding the Fantastic Four first steps. Now, specifically, of course, with both the Walt Disney Company and Marvel Studios now scrambling to fix and patch the Fantastic Four with reshoots and multiple test screenings, one major development going on now involves sudden and drastic financial cutbacks, which are actually sounding off alarms for many Marvel fans and even actual people that are actually engaged in the MCU for 2025. It turns out that both Bob Iger and Kevin Feige, that were involved in a recent emergency meeting over Fantastic Four, came to the conclusion that there are indeed deep financial troubles for the Fantastic Four. A crucial update to this situation now involves how Disney suddenly erased well over 20 scenes already for the Fantastic Four coming out of the lackluster test screening that estimated to around, get this, $15 million just for starters in the first wave of cuts for the movie after a lackluster test screening. Some of which, of course, some of these scenes were labeled as very expensive since it features action-packed moments in the third act, featuring Galactus that were cut right away. Many of those scenes have now been scaled back and thrown into the vault, essentially, which resulted in wasted funds, not just for the movie, of course, but also for the marketing campaign, and how it also resulted in less screen time for Galactus in the entire film. Now, in addition to this, both Bob Iger and Kevin Feige, along with the Disney Board of Directors, during their emergency call, came to a universal agreement to put a sudden halt on 25% of merchandise for Fantastic Four that was already produced since they witnessed extreme lackluster pre-orders and even interest for their Fantastic Four products. Now, this goes beyond just action figures, but for miscellaneous products as well that were showing little to no interest, much like Snow White, the Acolyte, and even now with Ironheart. Same exact scenario and millions of dollars of funds wasted yet again. Disney had already invested well over $80 million on merchandise just for Fantastic Four alone, and so far they aren't confident in breaking even with the merchandise already produced and heading to store shelves and online stores. Disney and Marvel are already organizing another emergency call to take place during the second week of this month on the marketing campaign cutbacks as well for the Fantastic Four, which will result in a planned 30% drop in TV spots and press tour appearances for the actors and actresses for the Fantastic Four first steps. Now, guys, let me just say one thing about this real quick before I move on. The fact that they are now pulling these stunts by doing all these financial cutbacks about how they overproduced this movie, how they actually overproduced merchandise for the Fantastic Four, they're in the same exact hole that they were in for Snow White, the Acolyte, and now Ironheart. Same exact scenario. It's like a copy and paste situation for Disney and Marvel and Disney/Lucasfilm. And so it really makes you wonder to yourselves, does Disney ever learn? it really makes you wonder to yourself, right? Do they ever learn from their mistakes? Seemingly no. Whatever patches and fixes they're trying to make right now, I think is just coming out of desperation to build up Bob Iger's legacy for 2025 before he steps down next year in 26. That's basically what it all boils down to, right? We know that the board of directors, we know that Disney investors are really beginning to show far less confidence in this film than they once had 2-3 months ago. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that these trailers that they're putting out, it's just not generating the type of excitement that they thought it would. Again, like I said before, and I have to make this very clear, this is no Snow White. It's not universally rejected. It's not universally despised at this point. It's nothing like Snow White. It's not like it's getting ratioed across the board, across social media. But for a Fantastic Four movie, for a Fantastic Four film that needs to be the very first successful Fantastic Four movie, it's just not pulling that interest that it should. And that's another thing. So overall, the overall situation between Bob Iger and Kevin Feige and how they're desperately trying to cut back on funds for this movie and how there's a lot of financial trouble going on around with this movie is also another major red flag. Now, both Disney and Marvel are now seemingly trying to actually dial back the presence of the film to prevent negative premature feedback from the fans. Disney is already ordering Marvel and Kevin Feige to embrace more scene cuts for the film as reshoots are continuing, and how reshoots are turning out to be more expensive as well. This is now reportedly going to result in a shorter runtime for the film than previously planned. Again, this film originally was going to be near 3 hours long in length, give or take 2 hours and 45 to 50 minutes, and now Disney is planning to make this just over 2 hours long, with the first hour focusing on Sue Storm and Shalla and less on Reed Richards and Johnny Storm, leaving just the last hour to, of course, Galactus, and if that. The financial cutbacks are already said to be worrying Disney shareholders and even Marvel fans for the film ahead of its July 25th release. And again, like I said before, this movie really is going to be a make or break for Marvel, especially in 2025. Now, yes, you have Doomsday in 2026, that's a given. But look, we know that with the combination of Ironheart coming out, which is going to be a guaranteed failure, and how this could potentially bleed into the Fantastic Four's success. Whether or not it does that, who knows, but combine that with this movie potentially not doing well, that's going to not really be great for the momentum of 2026 for sure. And for sure, it's going to lower the amount of percentage of people that are willing to go ahead and see Doomsday in 26. But overall, I think at the end of the day, it's very interesting the fact that Disney is losing more and more money. They don't really have as much funds as they once had to create Marvel films, to create Star Wars films, etc., the way that they want to. And that's exactly why things are the way that they are in 2025 right now. But overall, look, this is what you get when you shoehorn the message into movies. This is what you get when you don't listen to the fans for several years, and now it's finally catching up to them. Overall, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.